Number 9. The situation is this. Time is the primary element used to recognize placement within the third dimension. However, the veil between dimensions is thinning. As the awareness grows of the availability of fourth and even fifth dimensional processes for usage in this third dimensional realm, this veil will begin to thin even more. The new focus must include elements of the higher dimensions. How to do this? Thought moves between dimensions as long as the thought is within those dimensional parameters. Third dimensional parameters allow for interfering with the development of others. It allows for the forcing of one will upon another. Above that dimension, all are allowed freedom to develop without this interference. Personal responsibility is the keynote of existence. Contrary to the mass consciousness appearance of the lack of development of this level, it is there, simply smothered by the barrage of mind control techniques. However, those techniques are not as successful as it might appear. If these were, then the massive physical control that is being put in place would not be necessary. If these were, then there would be no problem of what to do about what they see as overpopulation. There would be masses of people following like lemmings into the sea. What is becoming a rising tide is the groundswell of feeling of people longing for this personal freedom. Through the moving of jobs from your country, people have found that they can create for themselves new opportunities, however nebulous they may be within the communications dream of non-production. This success within planned failure has tweaked the creative urge within many, thus the proliferation of home-based businesses. It is this glimmering of personal success that has sparked a surge within even the most oppressed of the beings in your country, meaning the welfare recipients. This information has not stayed within the boundary of this country. It has always been alive in countries of great poverty. If it were not, more would have starved long ago. This longing for freedom will be fanned into a blaze by the dream and its simplicity. It will be this new conception that will lift the spirits of those who will hear, and the lift will be literal. The inner prayer of the longing hearts shall be answered and their reaction to it will not be stopped. It can't be reached by third-dimensional methods, for those who try to apply them will simply be left as helpless as was the dark plan for the people. Once the critical point of awareness is reached, support of the new paradigm will take the planet forward as a whole. The ascension of the New Age dreamers is one of individual flights into the clouds, but this shall be a planetary change. Your Bible mentions two standing in a field and only one is taken. The person who wholeheartedly believes in the dream shall accompany the dream. The parents of this dream must have the understanding that third-dimensional parameters must be transcended and thought must be focused into the higher expectations of a new dimension. Trust in the personal responsibility of its citizens will be the key to the foundations of that new perception. It is the password, so to speak, for entry into this experience. Honesty and forthrightness are practiced without question. Your 23rd Psalm translation misrepresented this by the word righteousness, which was given the meaning of judgmental attitude, in particular, the actions of others. Instead, it was meant that each was to be responsible to live rightly within the personal focus of their life attitudes and actions. This would result in finding that games of inappropriate action will not work if no one else will play by those rules. There can be no victims and no martyrs if no one will play that game. This may sound naive considering the chaos around you, but that is the difference. That is the leap that must be made, through the assumption that humanity has a critical mass that is ready to assume this shift in perception. The profit motive at the expense of all others has not led to utopia. Man in true perspective is a radiant being, meaning created to give outward the expression of the Creator's love, not to live as a usurper with only the intent of drawing all toward himself as depicted by the material experience. The experiment of this has left him hollow and unfulfilled. This shall be the opportunity to experience what will satisfy and fill his heart cup to running over. How can you paint this vision with the color of emotion that shall magnetize all that hear it and catch them up into movement toward it? Intent shall be the alchemical ingredient, and the Creator's love of his children shall spread butter upon the path, to convert an old adage to a different focus. It can be done, it shall be done, on that you can place your life's focus and trust. The etheric winds of change are in motion and the momentum is building. Do you think there is anything that can stand against the creator of the game in the first place? It cannot be so. Welcome to the winning side. Now isn't that a wonderful greeting? This seems like a logical place on which to end this exchange of thought. Open your hearts and feel the love that is given to you for your trust and acceptance of our combined path in this marvelous adventure of adventures. How will we top this one? It is not for us to know, yet. Number 10. The movie, The Siege, contained heavy subliminal messaging. Just one point, remember that it used the Constitution to resolve the difficulty. However, Their intention is to use executive orders so that there is no constitution, for where will there be a judge with authority to stand against the dark organization? The realization of that will quickly demoralize the people. That was another sleeping pill of greater magnitude than you realize. Asking for shielding and for discernment was quite effective, and it will be most helpful to use it as the situation progresses. It is something that will need to be done by each and not something that can be done for a group by one person. Again, we go back to the law of individual responsibility. It will be interesting for you to know that the planetary consciousness is changing. Let us compare this to a breathing pattern. It is as though the planet is changing its steady intervals of inhale and exhale to an irregular pattern of a deeper inhale as compared to the exhale as a gathering of internal energies. That is an area of our discussions that has not been covered. The planet too shall participate in the plan to change the situation. Remember that all manifestation at all levels is the result of the projection of thought into the malleable ethers, your name for creative potential, and that thought is interactive within itself and the ability to maintain balance. You can perceive that you are beginning to experience a focus of change in a cooperative energy vibration. This has the potential to synchronize the inhabitant consciousness to blend with that of the planet as a whole. Perhaps this will allow you to begin to understand why we belabor the point of the importance of the parenting cells being of the consciousness that will produce this blending vibratory ratio. There shall be a quickening of the latent emotional connections to the planetary consciousness, not to the suffering on her part because of mankind's infliction of selfishness and greed, but to the area of conscious desire for change to a new and different experience. Remember, this is not the first civilization to experience here, and you do not know the history of these previous scenarios. Just as you experience and learn, so also is this repeated in the evolution of the planet as a whole. Here you begin to see the damming up of energy that is occurring now. When a hole in this dam is released in a direction that the whole of this energy can blend into cohesively, then there can be a release that will flush away the infection and bring about a healing of marvelous proportion. Just as a journey begins with the first step, so also this begins with the tiny hole in the dam by the formation of the first cells of the birthing process. It is not yet clear exactly what the planetary involvement will be, as it depends upon the blend of energy that parents the part of the process that is contributed by humanity. It is the key that unlocks the whole of the project. We, of course, have observed various scenarios of possible energy combinations similar to your computer projections and find that each brings forth a vastly different combination of possible reactions. Each leads to a similar end conclusion, not only in different combinations of similar elements, actions, and reactions, but in different elements, actions, and reactions entirely. Therefore, definite conclusions cannot be made even from this perspective. Isn't that interesting? We think so. Thus, once the selections are made and the first cells begin to act in the creation of the possible dream scenarios, it still will not be possible to project much of clarity until the dream scenario, becomes clear in the minds of these groups as a whole. Can we guide this process based on our test projections? We wish we could, but that would be unacceptable interference. In this case, the guidance will have to come from a higher source than we are. There is little doubt that the highest of high is most interested in what is happening here, and that source will be available for exactly the help needed. These miniature planetary think tanks will be allowed to play with possibilities, but the request for high source help will no doubt have much powerful input into the completion of the process. I can assure you that this level knows mankind to its very core and will guide the process, but there must first be the movement beyond desire into active thought projection for the purpose of manifesting this new experience. After the creative dreaming of possibilities, then follows the purposeful focus process to place the skeletal outline in place. The great reward will be the painting in of the details with the experience of that which you will have created. The joy of this part of the process shall be wonderful indeed. End number 10.